I started. Bloomin' heck. Right, okay. Oh, how do you work this? How do you make it happen? Oh. Right. What's he been doing? That next is too clever. Actually, I have to say that, you know, if you haven't seen this today on the normal Spectrum Facebook groups, this is always a worthwhile event each year. This is the, you know, the next is after all the Spectrum, and these are well worth having a quick look at. You know, every year there's a good group of games to try out. You know, and I always have a good play through them, so I'd encourage you to get a go on Doogie's itch.io page. It's a great way of doing it. Hiya, Jim. You all right? So I couldn't work out how to make the next actually auto start the stream because I was just going to leave a little gone fishing sign on my chair and just turn up when I was ready. Like I said, it's going to be a fairly short one this evening, I think, only because it's been a long day in work and I've been to the pub for a few beers. So, but hopefully we can make some progress. And I've cheated a little bit because I did the sort of hours work before I went to the pub. So I've added a few bits and pieces to the system, and that will allow us, I think, to hopefully make a little bit more progress in terms of what we're doing. So we can get rid of that, I think. Okay. Yo, Ben. Wow, people joining. Hey, welcome, Pet. We got like I say, don't expect a lot from tonight. It's just a bit of a catch up and a sort of review of where we are. One bit of good news is I messaged Phil last night. He's no objections to the microdrive code being released as open source, and it actually occurred to me. I mean, I wrote the rest of it for the Disciple, the Opus, and all the rest of it. So I think we'll package up the entire set of driver routines for each of the different systems for the Spectrum, and we can make all those available in case anyone wants to do some work with existing. Tony, welcome. Wow, we got a good few piling in now, so hopefully enjoying it. So we'll, you know, with this at the end of this .jam, I'll make all these files available, including all the drivers for all the other systems. I don't think there's one for the beta disk interface. I got a couple of beta disk interfaces, but I don't think we ever finished it. But there's definitely an Opus and a Disciple, and obviously the microdrive and the tape. So I'll stitch out the bits that are relevant for running them, and then be a bit of guidance on how to use those. Because I think, you know, we could have, you know, think about like an OCAT for an Opus catalog if you've got an Opus connected to the machine, or a DCAT for a Disciple and things. So you know, I think it could be quite a good way of adding to the pack. It's all very similar system of switching in a shadow ROM, so we should be able to build out quite a bit for improved compatibility. We had a quick chat to Gary earlier in about what might be needed with NextEd Exos, and he thinks maybe it can exist with the things. So there's plus there's a bit of an experimental feature in the ROM in the latest builds according to Alan that allows some of the ESXDOS RAM to hold a shadow copy of the shadow ROM, so we could do a patched version of the Interface 1 shadow ROM to fix any problems we're getting and make it a little bit more smooth, the integration. So that's a little way into the future, but sounds promising for support for existing things. So yeah, it was really nice quick chat with with Phil. So if he's watching this, thanks very much for doing that. Yeah, I think he said something like he's amazed around much he forgot about what he remembered. And of course, this is a guy who's you know, was if you haven't come across him, he's a musician as well, and has got some really good tunes available on YouTube. And he's just well, great. And you know, I had a little toy drum when he was playing guitar, I think. So there we go. So excellent. So that's a good start. So I thought what I'd do then is, that's useful. Also, there is a feature built in at the moment, which was for testing purposes while we were testing the interface, that Alan reminded me of, which is the fact that you can do an F key to flick the interface on and off. So actually, like here now, we've got, if I switch to just the next capture, is if I do my mcat -i to create the system variables, then obviously I can do a catalog on the, if I can actually cat1, for example, and do the catalog. You might not hear the bleep, but that's going to catalog the microdrive as we know. So rather than having to run the run that we had, I can just press the green drive button and press 6, which is, if I hold down, sorry, NMI, the yellow button, and press 6, then now that has in theory done, there we are, and switched us back into NextZXOS. So I think the decision is we'll keep that F5, F6 to turn the expansion bus on and off, which simplifies things. You don't even have to run the mcat command now, because I can also do, if I do hold the yellow button down on the side and do an F5, you've obviously got a PS2 keyboard, you can just hit the F5, press yellow button and 5, then I should be able to just do a cat again. Missing drive number, there we go. So we get the error, cat1, job done. So that's quite a quick way to flick back and forth between the two systems. So there we are, bit of good news for everybody who's seen that sort of side of it. So if we go back to what I did earlier, I did find the bits of poor for initialization, so I've stitched those into the command. Yeah, it is. It's a lot simpler, isn't it, Jim? And I think the two commands will work together then, so that you don't have to do a dot command every time. You haven't got to do you haven't got to have the thing on the cartridge as a workaround. So we can put these together now as a set of clear instructions for people, and it's very simple to move back and forth. And to be honest, even at this stage now, NextZXOS doesn't support it yet, but obviously after the .jam we'll try and work towards supporting that under NextZXOS as well, because all the elements are there to try and do it. So I'll try and put a bit of effort in to make that happen. Obviously we'll still try and push for the NextZXOS cat command to work under NextZXOS and go back, but yeah, I think we're doing good. So what I did is I stitched in the bit of code from the initialization, which, because there are multiple ROM versions for the interface 1, there's a bit of code that is initialized, and I've stitched that in, which basically finds the addresses of the routines we use and puts them self-modifying code. The great thing you can do on 8-bit computers, because they don't have any pipelines and they're not changing code. So Jim's getting excited by all these extra features. Look, great. So this basically modifies those couple of things that weren't. Pardon me, burping a bit. I've got a couple of pints of brains. Bitter is there, but there are a couple of marked ones. If we look at them, here we are. I've got dr cat here, and I've got this poke C. So basically, it's a little bit unusual in Z80ASM. If you wanna define something in the middle of an instruction, then what I'm doing is I'm saying the poke C is equal to where I currently am assembling at +1. So that's basically the call, and then these 2 bytes, and then marked by the label poke C. So the code down the bottom will do, where we've got this, we basically find the routine by looking for something we know exists at the very start of it from roughly where it is, and I think that's assuming that it's moved not far, and then it pokes in and self-modifies. So it's a bit rough and ready, but it works, and we know the code worked back to the day. So it's done by locating on. So there we are, that's all done, and I've changed that to a jump to 700 page out the 8K ROM and return to the 16K ROM. And then I just call that every time at the moment. So even if you've got a version 1 or a version 2 interface, it'll work. I think we were just lucky yesterday that I happened to have the right version of interface, probably because this code was written with the one that the default one. It's actually my interface 1 from back in the day, so chances are it was code was being assembled to run on this particular ROM. But anyway, now it should work with both ROMs. The other thing I've changed, you may notice, is I've gone up to 49152, and that is putting it on the boundary where page switching can happen easily in both the Next and a 1 to 8K, and that's getting us ready to allocate a page in NextEd-XOS, copy this code up to that section of the page, and then we can use that page number to jump in, run it, and then page back out again. So that'll give us the stable memory area outside of the main RAM. Once it's running NextEd-XOS, we can actually ask for that page to be allocated to us. Yeah, just luck, isn't it? Really, like I say, I'm winging this every day. What I'm talking about is, like, I had about literally 50 minutes of prep earlier, because I knew this was going to be a fairly short half-hour catch-up, but I wanted to have made some progress that you could see and would be worthwhile, and I could probably cope with after a couple of beers without having to write too much code from raw. So that's where we are with it. So I've covered all the bits. I'll get the source code out for each of those. I'll extract them all and make them available either in the distribution or on GitHub somewhere. Now, what we haven't got is the code to return to basic reliably. The other one I did is I added another color change to the tracing code so that we could see if it had succeeded, it would turn blue. Because, it goes green while it's running a cat, and then it's red if it's had an error, and then blue if it succeeds. So I wanted to see what was happening, because obviously it was locking up at the red, and I assumed it was hitting the halt, but actually we weren't getting the red. So it occurred to me overnight, I had a fairly nightmare existence. The silly things, you're lying in bed at night and you're going, you're halted, but it didn't turn red. And it says the error you routing to use. So I thought, maybe the code isn't doing what I'm thinking. So I wanted to think about some other ways we could test this. So what I've done, I've moved that up now. So if we do better check that I've actually got a link through to the device. Don't need that one. I want here. I want the actual machine itself, the root. Let's just check and get into bin. Yeah, okay, that's fine. So if I do a Control F7 to build now, and it'll build the extra bigger code, which is still not getting that big. It's only 570 bytes. It's not a big routine. So we're not in any danger. I think we might be able to fit. We might even end up renaming this from NCAT, because it could become quite a usable general purpose tool. We could turn it into like one that gives you options for copying files and cataloging, maybe just a general microdrive tool. If it all fits in one, sounds like a good idea. Anyway, so going back to the story, I've run this one now. So I've transmitted it to here. We are currently, I believe, in Next. No, we're not. We're currently as a microdrive. So if I'm going to use the quick trick to get back, which is the yellow button and F6 to turn off and 6, which generates an F6 command. So now I should be able to do the, we're back in there. I will do a .cd to go into the bin directory. I'm going to do a clear 49151, and I'm going to load from the SD card. Load star mcat main .bin quotes and then a code something 49152. So we're basically now in the context of ESX-DOS. I'm going to do a yellow F5 to turn the bus on, which makes the microdrive work. So now we can do a randomize and a user 49152. Now before I do that, let me just show you briefly what I've done on the bottom. I have changed the data drive, both its ASCII representation and its digital one. Can you? Right, thank you. All right, there we go. So you'll be able to see what's happening. There we go. You can see all three now. I wanted you to be able to see the code. So now I've added this 3 in there. So I basically moved around. Hopefully you can now, guys. Thank you, David. Welcome to the channel. So what I've done now is we've got as far as, all I've done is flick back and forth using the commands to be able to do things. So we're now at a position where I have loaded I've cleared the top memory, I've loaded the code in, and I am ready to go, and I've set drive 3. Now, my setup is 2 micro drives. The first one is a V drive, which is configured as drives 1 and 2, and drive 3 is a real drive. And currently there is no drive, there is no cartridge in drive 3. So what we should be getting is a real error, because it'll get microdrive not found. So if I do a randomizer 49152, now we're going to run the code. Now we get instantly the red, which is correct because it's the error, and we get missing drive number 01. Now that's not the error code, and we got 2 little bytes of corruption on the screen, if you notice. But what is clever, and I'm going to zoom in for this one, is when I press return, we're actually back in BASIC. So, which didn't happen when we had a successful catalog, and I can show that, because if I do, I'll put a cartridge in the drive now. I will do I will go back to being, I'll do a new. I'll show you just on the screen, rather than using the short key, I'll show you that still runs. I'll run our little flicking back to MS-DOS, into ESX-DOS by just clicking on the, running the little program. Either works, running the program or pressing the shortcut keys. So I'm back now in here, so I can use standard ESX-DOS commands. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to do the same again. I'm going to put my code back into, I'm going to clear up to 49151, which is what I did last time. That's why I'm going to repeat it. I'm going to load the mcat main.bin up into code 49152. And then I'm going to use the shortcut of being able to turn it off with the yellow NMI button and 6, which allows the catalog to be there. Now I've got a cartridge in the drive this time. So when I do a cat, no I don't, well I could do a cat there, but I'm going to do a randomize and run our program. So randomize user 49152. And this is effectively the same as if we just dump the code up there and run it. Well, all we've done is gone into BASIC a little bit, which is actually quite handy because it knows we haven't corrupted the BASIC situation stack. And I'll run it. And it didn't work. Why is that? What did I do, guys? Why? It's gone completely 49152. No, that is right. Okay, let's give it another go then. I'm going to reset the machine. I am in ESX-DOS probably. Yes. I am going to do an mcat minus. There may be the initialization hadn't happened actually because we reset. So mcat minus I to do that one. I am going to go back to microdrive by yellow button and 6. Which will allow me to go back into MS-DOS after initializing the variables for that. And I'm going to do a clear 49152, which will actually, that's going to, I know, that's actually going to clear them down, isn't it, again, I think. They get created as we do it. That's something worth looking at. I may be wiping out the system vars for the microdrive when I do that. But I should still be able to load the code. Load start mcat. This worked earlier. Main.bin pipe code 49152. And then I should just be able to go. Let's do it the way I did it in mcat3. Invalid O device, which I now I do a randomize. So that's effectively doing what our mcat command would have done to do an mcat3. And now I can do the randomize user 49152 and actually run the code by hand because we haven't actually done that bit. We haven't stitched it into the code yet. And great, there we are, it's working. So the green code the green is now running the catalog command, and because there's actually a tape in the drive, it does it and it goes blue, which means it's succeeded and come out of the routines at the safe space. So if we go back to probably the easiest thing to see there, if we go back just so you know where we're doing it, we've got as far as in the code flow, the drcat turned green, ran all the catalog code. Once it would run, come back out, restored the stack in terms of the error pointers, and jumped to no error. And at no error, we set everything up ready to return back to basic. I loaded A with number 1, which is a blue colour, and set that, and then I did the return, which should bring us back to basic. But unfortunately, it's locked up. It's completely dead. But when we went through the error route of actually generating an error and ending up back here, we did actually end up being able to go back to basic. So I'm sure everybody on the call who does an EZ80 programming, this smells of a stack imbalance somewhere, where in this particular situation, our stack is not exactly as when we come out of the situation, the stack is not in exactly the right situation we thought we left it in before it all started happening. And I think that's what's happening to us here. Our stack is in an indeterminate state. So when it hits that ret here now, at the very bottom, this bit, it turns the colour, it returns to somewhere completely and utterly junky. And in fact, if we leave it run long enough, well, while I'm talking, we should see something impressive, I hope. So, although it sounds depressing, it does mean we've made a little bit further progress than we did last night, which was, we just thought, oh great, it's all working, but I assumed I was hitting the halt, which I wasn't. So the halt only comes if you've had a red error route, which actually did manage to then recover. It didn't, for some reason, never hits that, and I don't know why. So the error is happening in the ROM and not recovering. So there's definitely something a little bit off in the way the code runs. Like I said, this stack is known to work perfectly well in POR and has been used for significant amounts of development. So either my hacking about with it has broken something, or there's been a bug that we've never known about for 35 years. Well, yeah, I don't think so. So I'm reasonably certain it's where I hacked it about. I might have missed something. So I'll have to have a careful study of the couple of bits I hacked out in case it was doing something critical as relied on. But I'm reasonably confident that proves that we've got a chance of being able to get back to the context we were in before. The fact that on an error it ends up back in basic, it shouldn't, because we should be recovering to where we are. But the fact it does means that at least there's enough there for it to be able to cope. So I'm reasonably happy that that's good progress on that bit of the code. What else did I have to do? So the only other thing I thought was, is about this 25 past 10 now. I had wondered, because the cat is running, it's going to be not that interesting, but I wondered whether I could actually take some of the extended cat code and look at how it would integrate with this one. I probably won't get it working tonight, but we'll at least, we're no worse off by adding extended cat functionality. This is and whenever I'm coding, I don't know whether other people do the same way, but if I strike something like this, it's going to take a fair amount of effort to sort out. I'm quite happy to move off to something I can have a good visual gain on, or something that'll look better to carry on, because it's not going to be impossible to find this bug. And actually, by adding the little bit where the catalog happens to make it look and provide the extra data that the routines under the harvested from DevPack and Panel do, won't actually affect the outcome of fixing this bug. So you can make forward mode, because there's no way I'm going to fix this tonight after a couple of beers, and I have no idea why. I did have a look for about 5 minutes before the phone went nuts to see if I could see the bug, and I couldn't. The stack seems to be well balanced, just so that everyone's aware. The thinking I did was, I'm thinking actually it'd probably be worth making this code available somewhere so people can look at it before tomorrow. So I might try and do that, or over at least for the weekend anyway. I'll try and get the code out so that people can look at it themselves. But my thinking was that we were reasonably well balanced, because we come in here from basic, The init ROM was a standalone bit of code I took out of the poor boot system, and this program just runs when poor boots. Funny enough, that's how I found it. It's called the boot program, and it basically initializes everything you need depending on whether it's Opus. And I'll release all of this, so it sets up Opus and Discovery Drive, all basically pluggable device drivers. So I'm reasonably confident that code has run perfectly for years. There's no reason why it shouldn't be. I literally pasted it in, didn't have to change anything, and just put a ret on the end of it, and then realised it was actually doing a call. So I just turned that into a jump, which, as everyone knows, is a way of saving a byte instantly, and it's second nature to just change a call followed by a ret into a jump, and so that shouldn't have really impacted on that code. That was exactly what we were doing before. This one is only copying that, and this is actually the best way of ever exiting into BASIC. ROM set min is a way of exiting back into the core ROM that sets up, cleans down the workspace for anything you've done, and is one of the best error recovery points in the Spectrum ROM anyway. So I'm reasonably certain that doesn't fail. What I think is happening is this never returns. So the stack imbalance is happening somewhere here in this subroutine, where now, of course, everyone's shouting, let's trace it, let's run it with a debugger, let's stick it into CSpect and see where it dies. Because, yeah, exactly. There are many ways how to skin the cat. Thank you very much, Ped. This is the way I work and think. But of course, I can't do any of this in CSpect because it doesn't provide any emulation of half the things we're using. And jumping around. One of the debuggers that does work in this environment is the picturesque one. Gary's got a couple of little edits to it that allow it to cope with page switching happening and just find a space in memory. So what I might do on Saturday night, I think, is I'll show you how to set up that bare minimum picturesque debugger to start working through code when you're doing this sort of context and device management on the real machine, because you are very limited. And I'm a bit limited here because, of course, I'm in NextZXOS. I'm not in NextZXOS, I'm in ESXDOS, so I haven't got the NMI debugger that Gary's written, which allows you to jump in and look at what's happening. So it's a little bit harder to write at this level, but the picturesque editor will let you do that. So, and I think I'm reasonably happy with my legality of being able to use and adapt the picturesque monitor, having had just about every version since just about every version of it since the very earliest one. I think that doesn't look exactly legal, but I don't know. That might just been a copy I made. And so, reasonably happy that code debugger's, mine to use as I wish. So we'll probably take a look at that as a job on Saturday and just take a little look at how to be able to trace through code using a proper debugger rather than having to use the staring at the code until it fixes itself technique that I'm using at the moment. Okay. So like I said, I'm 99% certain the problem's in here. This basically starts off with saving the current bank because it's assuming. Hey, oh, look who's turned up! Lapsed Arcade, welcome. So what's all this then? This is how to not program after 4 pints of Brains Bitter. Yeah, thank you, David. Actually, there's something. It is something really pleasing about looking at code and running it in your mind. It's almost quite tranquil to step through each instruction in your head and say, what happened there? Why did it do that? And it's going to give you a much deeper understanding of the operation of the system. And I think anyone who hasn't tried it, you don't have to have complex code like this. Just literally do it with a handful of instructions, and it is the best way to build up. I suppose it's a bit like in school. You have these powerful calculators. I mean, I had this calculator back in the day, but unless you actually knew how to sine or cosine, there's just for years I didn't understand how sine and cosine worked or what they meant, and without those you can't use them. So understand, even if you've only done a day's worth of it at this level, you're going to have a much better way to just generate code and spot errors that are instantly there. like I say, colour changes, as Jim says, it's the best debugging tool you're ever going to learn. Most of us picked it up very early in the day. It's one of the Spectrum's real strength. A lot of other machines have got it, the Oric. The big shame is the Dragon can't change its border colour. Yeah, exactly, Jim. Yeah, it does. I mean, people go, oh yeah, wow, I can see why that's obvious. Oh, I'll tell you what I didn't do. Talk amongst yourselves a minute. I forgot to put any water by the side of me for tonight. I've got a dry cough. I will be back in 2 seconds. Meantime, I shall restore your advert so that you can study the advert and read the topic. And that's the other disadvantage in this house. The study's almost at the front and the kitchen's right at the back. Yeah. Yeah, Brett, it's all right. It's quite. It's if 10 and 11-year-olds can code this sort of stuff. There we are. A tale of real use of colour changes from Emook. Dave, yeah, Mr. Safir, well done. I thought. Okay, that's better now with a glass of water. So let's go back to where we were, which is the code. So, you know, I don't get any kickback from those 11-year-olds, by the way, if you play their games. But I think it's brilliant that somebody does that. You know, it's almost. I remember, you know, very early on what sold me when Jim was selling the Virtues of the Next in the early days. You know, it's this. Yeah, I'm sure you can write a game as good as they can there, Brett. No problem at all. So, and hopefully one day one of those 11 will be doing this sort of stuff on your embedded system. So, yeah, exactly. And I think for, you know, I know we're going off a tangent really, but hey, what the hell, you know, it's Thursday night, it's relaxed night. I think we've all had a fairly heavy week, and you know, it's Friday tomorrow, and we'll be, you know, I'll put a bit of development effort in over the weekend on this. You know, I'm hoping to really push it forward in a few, maybe a couple of different streams. But I'll try and sort of do some work in between, so there's something to see and watch and interact with. But yeah, it's these machines. I can't remember where I saw it recently, but the 8-bit machines were the last ones where a single person can understand how the entire machine works. It is possible for a single person, without investing their entire life, to understand everything from the hardware, the metal, the coding, the development environment, and just get it completely. If you know, it does take a bit of time. I mean, I put a lot of hours in when I was, you know, in the 1980s to get the detail to become reasonably good at it, and I wasn't bad. Yeah, Brett, it's I never, ever, ever asked or tried to push my kids to get involved in code. But one day they'll find something they want to do. I always remember that he was just didn't show an interest in that. Science, yeah, all sorts of stuff with science. And then one day I just went into the bedroom. I can't remember how old he was. Not that old, maybe 12 or something, 11 maybe. And he had an IDE up with C++ code being written. And I said, "What are you doing, Tom?" He said, I'm writing some custom blocks for Minecraft." I said, "Well, how'd you learn how to do it?" I watched some YouTube videos and I pulled it up and I started doing it. I'd never seen him do it. He'd never shown any interest in code before, but because he wanted to be able to have certain blocks he couldn't get in Minecraft, he learned how to install the IDE and develop the C++ to create custom copies of the blocks. So, ultimately, we all know that this sort of code ability underlies everything that's happening on the planet now. There isn't much that hasn't got engineering in it. And even some of the no-code development systems, you can do the bulk of it. Yeah, Jim, that's exactly the point I would make is, when you turn it on, when we're at shows, I turn it on, and Matt always comments how Orb's always up, but Orb is a game written in BASIC. It's on the distribution. It was written as a game jam over a weekend. It's a lovely bit of BASIC. It's got some things that you instantly can see how you could improve it, like adding a joystick. And because it's a survival game, basically, you've got no way of counting how long you've lived. So just adding a counter for the number of moves makes the game 100 times better. But it's something you can show anyone, even a fairly young person, how to do very quickly, and they get it. They get it almost instantaneously about how you've added that feature to the code, and that interactivity of BASIC has been lost in today's world. So, we're ranting here a bit, innit? Yeah. There we go. So, what was I doing on the development code then? So, my original think was to try and do it, but hey, it's 20 to 11 now, so I said it was going to be a fairly short one tonight. So, I think rather than just me boringly typing in the code from the DevPack compiler. Yeah, I think, well done, Brett. I mean, a PC, it's exactly the same as, us back in the day. There were gaming consoles around. I never had an Atari 2600, some of my mates did, and they were great for playing games. But when I finally got a computer, a ZX81, I could write my own stuff with it. And in fact, I had to, because initially I couldn't even get tape deck to work. So unless I typed it in from a magazine or typed it, coded it myself, nothing happened. And that's where you can do it. And I think there's one thing I did like, actually. It's a fairly modern one, but the Nintendo Switch has got a version of BASIC for it and a development environment. So you can actually get kids into coding with the Nintendo Switch. So that's a possibility as well. Yeah. What was the joke we used to say, that the chronons move faster? The particles of time move faster around computers. They cause some sort of local consumption of chronons where you really have only spent 10 minutes on the code and it's 2 hours later. So and it can be quite relaxing generating code. So yeah, there we go. So I think, like I said, for tomorrow night, what I'll do when I come in from work, I'll try and copy in the extended cat code, type it in ready, cut, paste it and check it. And that will allow us just to try and focus on the .jam, much as the interactive chat. I think I'm quite enjoying this experience of having some people live, so maybe we'll pick some other topics and do something occasionally for the next with a bit of interactivity like this. There's a show I watch actually quite a lot, is the Coco Talk Live, that runs quite well with a sort of panel and interactivity. So yeah, I think I'm not sure what it is. It's a development environment, but it does allow you to create these sort of manipulate 3D elements, and it's got a huge API number, and of course that is the big barrier for people, is learning the APIs. So yeah, but it is definitely, it's a way of making the Switch something interesting, and it's quite it looked fairly simple to get into. I haven't done anything I haven't got a Switch, but I seriously thought of getting one just to learn it, but my kids are grown up, flown a coop now, and in fact the one I was talking about doing, we sort of got into a bit of C++, has just signed up to do a master's degree in artificial intelligence. So you never know how the world's going to change, do you? So there we go. But I think most people have to be equipped to be able to do something with code, even at the very simplest level of understanding procedural work. And it's our duty to find things that interest them, just to make it. And I think that's a really important point. I really do. And it's hard to make this stuff interesting, but once you try it, it's great fun. I was never a big fan of football growing up, but once we started playing five-a-side in work, I really enjoyed it. It's the same thing. Fuse, that's well done. Thank you, Jim. There we go. There we go. So, because we don't save the comment. The reason I repeat a lot of this back is we don't save the comments for some reason. I don't know why. But this is only the fourth day of streaming. I'm only just grown. So, where were we? So I'll type that in ready for tomorrow night's stream, and we'll see if we can get the extended cat running tomorrow night. And we shall be hopefully moving forward then. I'll try and find the error, and it might be that Saturday's job is setting up the picturesque monitor and seeing how to step through code to see what's actually happening, to find this not returning to our context error before we stitch it into the dot command and move it into the page area. There's no point in doing that till this works. And I think that's the other sort of point I've made all the way through this is do a little bit of code, make sure you're 100% confident it all works and what you're expecting it to do. When you do, you can stitch the bigger modules together. Because if you overreach and write 1,500 pages of stuff, then you're just never going to get anywhere, especially if you've had a couple of beers. Right. So, 11:15, guys. Unless anyone's got any specific questions about what's happening, just in summary, then I'll try and get this code out. I don't see any reason actually why this couldn't be used as an interface example. So we'll, unless anyone on the team's got an objection, I'll try and commit it to the next GitHub as an example of how to use the expansion bus, and I'll try and include the code examples in there. It'll be a bit alpha at the moment because it's all raw code, but it'll be somewhere people can find it. If I can't do it tonight now, before I go to bed, because I got a long day in the office tomorrow, I will try and put it up first thing tomorrow night so that the code is there, and then I'll do occasional git commits as we move forward, so that this and the document about how the expansion bus works, I've been meaning to add that to the distribution at some point, so I'll find a suitable place in it and make it available for everyone. Great. So there we go then. I'm quite surprised I managed to sustain that. I was offered another pint, and I thought, well, if I could have had the next auto start it, I could have jumped in and done it remotely, couldn't I? But hopefully it's been of interest, and it's been great getting some of the feedback from everyone joining it. And we'll see you all again tomorrow night for hopefully an extended catalogue running. I won't promise we'll get all the way into making it work as a dot command, but hopefully by Saturday we can achieve that. Well, my goal is by Saturday sort of evening to have a dot command that works, bare minimum viable, and that I can submit on Sunday. I will version that then and say, okay, if it all goes pear-shaped on Sunday, then okay, I've still got something to submit by the end of the jam. And then Sunday, then we can sort of fork it off and start looking at version 1.2. No, it doesn't work very well for me. That's why I did it earlier and just pretty much have talked about it. And even then, with a simple testing error, I made a mistake of trying to run it not in the same context because I used the Control F6 to jump it, which changed the world. Yeah, and you, Jim, and everybody, thank you for joining the stream, and hopefully we can find something to do tomorrow that is also as interesting, and I won't have had quite so many beers. So I'm going to end the stream. Thank you very much, everybody. Catch you soon. See ya. Ta-ra, Brett. Bye-bye.